Hi, it's Uncle Larry. Imagine you're a person with solid values and unimpeachable character whose lifestyle is a living testimony to your values. You're genuinely decent to the core. You're loved in your neighborhood. You have empathy. You are productive. You like getting things done. You aren't a glory seeker. You don't care who gets the credit. You aren't envious or resentful of the good fortune of others. These authentic traits should give you the moral upper hand in almost any encounter. But individuals like you will often have a difficult time expressing your values verbally if those values are challenged. You can be easily picked apart, not because your values are wrong, but because you don't have the vocabulary to answer an opponent who might possess superior verbal skills. And you don't spend a lot of time navel-gazing about why you do what you do. You're just too busy doing it, right? You have a harder time articulating reasons for your beliefs. Am I describing you? Now, a lot of things don't require a foundational ethos. Of course not. And there's no need to explain some practices and beliefs that are just the result of common agreement or things that are passed down through generations. Here's an example. You might purchase some chocolates for a loved one on Valentine's Day. Well, you certainly don't need to be versed in the history of St. Valentine or versed on why it's celebrated on February 14th. Nobody's going to confront you on the street and demand an explanation for those chocolates. It's just something you do. But not everything is like that. Let's imagine another scenario. You're actually confronted by someone whose values are different, someone who demands that you give an account of why your beliefs are still relevant or preferable to other beliefs, usually theirs. Can you do it? Can you articulate what's important to you? Can you verbally defend yourself if confronted? Or is this talkative opponent just going to walk all over you and win the encounter by default? While this may be easier for some than others, I'm going to suggest that learning to verbally defend your values is an important skill, not merely for the sake of winning, but because your values are inherently worth defending. As you learn to defend your values, you contribute to their preservation in the face of differing opinions, ensuring that they remain strong and relevant. When you articulate and defend your values verbally, you embark on a journey of self-discovery and clarity, refining your understanding of what you stand for. This process fosters personal growth and builds resilience as you face opposition with confidence. Now, here's a rather crude personal example. I spent my early years on a rather tough street in what is now a suburb of Toronto. My next-door neighbor, Jimmy Wilson, was a bit of a thug, and he had a habit of beating me up after school, just for the heck of it. I would dread those walks home, never knowing if Jimmy would see me and show off his pugilistic skills to his pals at my expense. One day, my dad found out about this. Now, he could have gone to Jimmy's folks and dealt with their son's bullying that way, but he was no helicopter parent, so that approach was out of the question. My dad possesses a rather sanguine, gentle temperament, a quiet confidence, if you will. What a lot of people didn't know was he was a successful boxer in his youth. So he took me downstairs, put up a punching bag, and got out his old pairs of boxing gloves and began to educate me in the basics of self-defense. He told me there was nothing wrong with defending myself, provided that I didn't use what I was learning to become an aggressor like Jimmy Wilson. That wasn't the point. The motive for teaching me was to just make sure I could handle myself if I needed to. I recall those sessions with great fondness, and the odd time he'd let his guard down and allow me to pop him in the nose, and then he would laugh. Man, I remember that like it was yesterday. It wasn't long before a confrontation with Jimmy Wilson actually happened, but the outcome was different. He never tried that again. And few others in the neighborhood were inclined to trifle with me either. By the way, Jimmy and I became good friends, and he dropped his own aggressive behavior. Sometimes all it takes to disarm an intellectual opponent is to calmly stand up for yourself. Often, loquacious types are so accustomed to babbling on and having their own way that the very idea of being challenged doesn't even occur to them. It comes as a shock. I realize that for some who aren't naturally verbose, standing up for what you believe can be a daunting prospect. But in this era of division and polarization, I think it's important. And it's not just developing a way to articulate your own values, but also learning about how an opponent thinks as well. But that's for another comment. Just don't let people get away with stuff because they're verbose. Defend yourself. Bottom line, are your values worth defending or not? If so, let's get to work. If you need help in the art of such conversations, message me, and I will be happy to help you further.